because when I say we're going technical, we really went technical. Okay, we are now live on YouTube along with here on Zoom. Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen. Come on, what's it not doing? Come on. Oh, I see what it's not doing. Hold on one moment. Okay, let's try this again. Optimize screen one, share, put that down, put that down. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So tonight by the numbers, we have got 740 attendees registered to come on at some point tonight out of 5 countries and 29 states. So I want to welcome you all to the Type 1 Nation Summit, the first virtual edition, which I don't know, it's just so exciting to me. But if your kids need something to do, since we don't have the kids camp tonight, we've had it the last 3 nights, but tonight we're hoping that you'll have your kids join you to hear Rob Howe later. But for right now, they can go on to the website here that April is also going to put into the chat box. And they can go there and get some fun activity pages courtesy of Ford. And speaking of the chat box, it is down in your lower bar. If you hover down there, you're going to see a bar that says chat. And when you do that, you can chat to all the other attendees. You can chat to us as panelists. You know, it's your way to engage, because as you see, you're all muted. We can't see you. And we did that because so many people would be joining and it would make it a bit chaotic. But we do want you to engage with us. So that's one of the ways. The other way is the Q&A box. It's also near the chat area. And the Q&A allows you to ask questions of the panelists. So as we have our wonderful panelists up here, we want you to ask them lots of questions. They expect it. It's part of their presentation, the ability to be able to answer your questions. So feel free to ask them. And then you've got some different views that you can do on your screen. So up in the upper right, play around with those. You can't break anything. In one version, it shows you almost like the Brady Bunch, where all the presenters, especially when we have our panel on, are all on the screen. You can decide which one's Mike Brady and which one's Marcia, but anybody that's young probably doesn't even know who that is. Or you can do it other ways to where the presentation is bigger. There's a number of things that it'll do. And we really want you to be social with us. Get out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter tonight, and all the other ones that are out there, and use our hashtags, Type 1 Nation, Stronger Together, and JDRF, and tell them all about your experience here at the summit. Take a picture of your screen, as long as I'm not on it, and put those pictures and put that out there on social media. And we are also streaming live right now on YouTube. April is going to share the link in the chat room, and you will be able to share that on social media as well, so that you can let everybody else come and see it. If they haven't registered, they can just watch it on YouTube. You don't have to have registered to be able to do that. And then lend us your voice. we really need advocates. We need people that when we want to reach out to the representatives, to our representatives, we want to be able to, we need help from you. And I didn't take the time out. It times out on me. And so the way that you do that is by going to jdrf.org/join and become an advocate. It's really easy, really fast. When we ask you to send an email or send a text or whatever, we give you all the language, but we just need your voice. That would be a great help to us. And somebody has asked that, how do you see the Q&A box? It is down there on the lower part. You just hit it and the box will come up. I have noticed a couple people have raised their hands. You really need to talk to us through the chat box or the Q&A. I can't bring somebody up that's raised a hand. So you've got to use one of those two things, and they are down in the bottom. If you hover your mouse along the bottom, they will come up for you to be able to use them. So we want to say thank you to our healthcare heroes, especially right now, those that are on the front lines, and our fire and police workers, grocery stores, gas stations, everyone that is out there working so that we can get our needs taken care of, but stay nice and safe. So we just wanted to do a shout out for them. Those are two of our youth ambassadors doing that shout out to all of our heroes. Our Promise Ball and Gala, you know, our gala, at least the Detroit Gala, was supposed to be tomorrow night. But as you know, we can't be with you in person, and that's really sad. But we're going to do the next big thing. And on June 4th, we're combining both the Grand Rapids and the Detroit galas together. And we're going to have one big evening on June 4th, and it's going to be virtual and live. There's going to be a great silent auction. I'm already putting my eyes on a few to bid on. And it's really cool because you can bid online and you can see when you've been outbid. There's even going to be a DJ playing music in between the different things that we bring on. It's going to be pretty entertaining. There's also going to be a live auction with some exciting things that you just may want. And we want to thank Ford Motor Company. Ford Motor Company is the presenting sponsor for the gala, but not just the gala. They are a partner throughout the year for over 20 years. In fact, no other corporate partner has done more to fund JDRF research than our very own Ford. Over $70 million to date. And I want to share a thank you message with you that Aaron Kowalski made for Ford and their employees.
How do we even begin to say thank you? Your support at Ford is making it so much better for me, Edsel Ford's son, and the more than 1.6 million people with type 1 diabetes to live every day, and to advance research that will cure this disease. There is no way to express the depth of our thanks. Please know how much of an impact each of you is having, and know that together we will cure T1D.
Okay, can I make a confession that that is the first time this week that I've made that video work right on the first try, so I'm pretty darn excited. It's walk time to register for walk. We've got 5 great walks scheduled for this fall. We are just hoping that they are all going to be in person, but it's time. April, Crystal, and I want you to get online, register, get those teams on, and let's see you this fall out at our walks. We want to say thank you to our JDRF volunteers. It is National Volunteer Week, but every week we love our volunteers. And every week, every day, every minute, you're out there helping us make sure that we're able to achieve our mission to find a cure to for type 1. So thank you, volunteers. And our volunteers are key to us. They're key to our fundraising efforts. But with many of JDRF's biggest spring fundraising events canceled or postponed, the funding of future research is in jeopardy. In order to meet this challenge, we are asking our supporters who are able to contribute to our Fund a Cure program. Fund a Cure provides JDRF with the dollars needed to move therapies and technologies out of the lab and into the waiting hands of the T1D community. 100% of your Fund a Cure donation goes directly to our mission and is 100% tax deductible. Although these are uncertain times when so many things seem beyond our control, there is one thing we can control and take pride in, and that is ensuring JDRF's mission to cure type 1 diabetes continues. Our youth ambassador, Kendall, would like to tell you a little bit more about how your donations have helped make her life better.
Hi, my name is Kendall Chamberlain and I have T1D. Thanks to donations to JDRF from people like you, I am able to be more independent. I participate in many school activities. I also perform in dance and theater. Since I was diagnosed at 7, my treatment has gotten easier to manage. I now use a CGM to monitor my sugar and an insulin pump that delivers insulin throughout the day. Your continued support means that our lives will only get easier. Thank you for all your support.
I don't think I can say it any better than that. And now I am going to bring up two special gentlemen. If Dr. Grunberger and Mike Hoskins, if you could turn on your camera and video, please. There's Dr. Grunberger. And let me, come on, why isn't it not moving? There we go, okay. Mike, are you on? Are you unmuted? And let me look.
I am unmuted, I think, if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
Is your video on?
Let's see, trying the video, unable to start video.
Okay, hang on 1 second and I can fix that. Just one
Gotcha.
moment. All right, I need to go over here, bring up participants. I thought I had already fixed that, but apparently I didn't. Okay, you should be able to do your video now.
Perfect. Here we are, outstanding. Well, thanks for that. And Denise, I know you're out there somewhere too. So hi, and everyone else for joining in tonight. Thank you for being here. It's my privilege to give this introduction and really an honor to talk for a few moments, not only about that extraordinary guy on the little window there virtually, Dr. Grunberger, but first to talk a little bit about Dr. Fred Whitehouse. Some of us may know the name. He spent most of his career at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. And he was pretty much a game-changing force within our community. 7 decades in our community making a difference. It's not a stretch to say pretty much that what we know about diabetes today and how we manage this condition is in some way touched by the work he did throughout his life. There's really words, and you could go on for hours and hours just talking about Dr. Whitehouse, but he started out working with Dr. Elliot Joslin in Boston back in the late 40s. He came to Detroit, spent 5 decades at Henry Ford. Some of his accomplishments, of so many, are leading the American Diabetes Association in the late 70s and being part of landmark research in the 80s that would essentially help establish the A1C as our diabetes care standard. Locally, of course, he was very involved in our JDRF chapter and the summit itself. Starting in 2008, he was on the planning committee. He co-chaired in 2011, and then he was a keynote presenter in 2015, talking about his 7 decades of experience in type 1. Sadly, we lost him on March 1st, 2019, at the age of 92. But it's very exciting that today JDRF is honoring Dr. Whitehouse's legacy with an annual award in his name. it goes to someone who's exemplified that same kind of passion, that dedication, understanding, and support for our type 1 community. I'm very happy to present this first award to Dr. George Grunberger, who many know for his roles in the summit and chapter over here for years. And of course, he has Grunberger Diabetes Institute in Bloomfield Hills going on about 20 years now. He's a widely respected global leader himself with quite the resume. And I've had the honor of knowing him for several years in my own work professionally, but more on a personal note, as he's my own endocrinologist. He's really an awesome guy to know. And without a doubt, he embodies everything that Dr. Whitehouse was about. So it's very fitting that he gets this year's inaugural award. I think Dr. Whitehouse would certainly be proud of all Dr. G does for us in this diabetes community. And with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Grunberger. Please say a few words if you don't mind.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for those overly kind words. And I don't have to tell anyone in the audience how honored and how humbled I am to be the first recipient of this Fred Whitehouse Award, because as you already mentioned, Fred was truly a giant. He was a giant in the world of diabetes, and he touched so many lives, both as a scientist, researcher, but also as a physician, as a human being. And I'll tell you, as I tried to express in my diabetes care article, when I was asked to write a little sort of vignette about his life, he was a giant. He was a Renaissance man. He was a role model for so many of us in the profession, and to receive an award in his name is truly a humbling experience. And as you mentioned, Fred was there at the very beginning of this summit. And so my sort of second kudos, in addition to Fred, is to the chapter. The JDRF chapter locally has been amazing. And I'm not really sure how many of you actually know how this whole summit business started. And so if you don't mind, let me just give you a little reminiscence here. It was in 2007 when Jim Slaughter was appointed executive chair of the executive director of the chapter. And when I met Jim for the first time, in my usual way, I gave him a little bit hard time. I said, you know what? This chapter is amazing. Fundraising, raising money for cure, raising money for research, doing exactly what JDRF is supposed to be doing. I said, but who's taking care of these thousands of people with T1D today? Who's helping them? They're hungry for information. They need to know what to do before the cure arrives. And we had this now famous breakfast at the original Pancake House in Grosse Pointe, and Jim got it. He was amazing. Remember, this was really unusual for JDRF to actually invest in education of existing patients with T1D, not just for a cure. And as you already mentioned, by the fall of 2007, a committee was formed, and the spring of 2008, the first rendition of this summit was put on. At that time, he had no idea if anybody's going to show up. We had 500 people who showed up the first year. It was 1,000 and 1,200, 1,500, and we had to move to a larger venue. And all of a sudden became the largest educational event for T1D in the nation. And as you know, National JDRF obviously gave the chapter all the kudos, and now it became really a model for the education and the sort of part of knowledge and everything we're doing right now for people who already have T1D and really can't wait for the cure. Something needs to be done right now. So again, thank you so much. I'm truly honored and humbled, and to be recipient of an award in Fred Whitehouse's name and by this chapter is truly a terrific recognition. And I hope there will be bigger and larger personalities who follow me. And I'd like to also give special thanks to Denise Fantascu that she came up, I guess, with this idea to make sure that Fred Whitehouse's name stays in the memory of all of us forever. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Grunberger. Thank you, Mike. Thank you both for all your contributions. It was great to have you here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you can turn off your video and audio. And I'm going to ask all of my panelists, Jillian, Kiri, Mila, Sahil, all to pop on. because now we're going to bring up our social media panel, and they're going to tell you how social media can help you within the type 1 world. You guys can unmute and also turn your video on. And if you can't, I'm going to fix that right now. This is one piece that you're supposed to be able to in this way, but hang on, I'm doing you right now. Sahil, you should be all set. Kiri, you should be all set. Jillian, you should be all set. And Mila, you should be all set. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Can you all just say something?
How you doing?
Make sure. There we go.
Hello.
Great. You're all looking wonderful. I'm going to let you take it from here. I'm going to turn off my video and mute, and the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. We're going to do a little introductions at this time. My name is Jillian. I am 32 years old and from Michigan. I've been living with type 1 diabetes since I was 8 years old, and I am also a type 1 sibling.
And I'm Mila Clark Buckley. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm 30 years old. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2016. My mother also has type 2 diabetes. And I'm currently managing right now with multiple daily injections, oral meds, and using a CGM.
What's up, everybody? My name is Sahil. I've been type 1 diabetic since 1998, so 22 years, and I'm 27 right now. I'm using a pump to monitor all my insulin, and I've actually been using some oral medication as well. Just started that, which has been really helpful, and been fairly involved since college and looking to continue staying involved with the JDRF community.
Hi guys, my name is Kiri Cheney. I live in San Diego and I have been a type 1 for 5 years. I'm also the mom to a type 1 child. My daughter, she is 11 years old and also has type 1. We were diagnosed 2 months apart, and I'm 31 and was diagnosed at the age of 26. I use Dexcom and the Tandem t:slim pump with Control-IQ.
Awesome. So we did all our introductions and we're going to dive into everything. And just a reminder, there's a little Q&A box. So if anybody out there has any questions, feel free to type them in. We will try our best to answer all of them. So we're going to just jump right in. And Sahil, I would love to discuss with you what it's like living with type 1 diabetes in the Indian community. I know that you do tons of incredible dancing. If you want to kind of discuss what you do with diabetes and in your community.
Yeah, no problem. Starting off, I work as an engineer. I work with a cybersecurity company right now. That's my 9 to 5. But on the side, I have my own dance academy, as well as my own entertainment company where we provide event coordination and DJ services for private events. So that's how I stay busy. But within the diabetic community, what we try, within the Indian community with diabetes, what we try and do and what we're always trying to showcase is there's a large type 2 community within the South Asian community, and the differentiation isn't always so clear. So our job right now is just to more so showcase that, hey, there are differences and there are different ways people react, and there are things that we are limited with, but by no means are we confined to any sort of bubble or stereotype that people have presumed without, without looking too much into it. There's just the amount of times I'm sure all of us can relate that we've been denied a piece of cake or an extra sip of pop or something like that. We're here, especially as in the Indian community, we're here to showcase that these limits are just they're not true. There's more that we can do than what we're being allowed to do right now.
With your dance academy, you have a couple diabetics in your academy. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually my founding partner is a type 1 diabetic as well. He was diagnosed when he was 13. So, I can only imagine how difficult it must have been dealing with being a teenager, growing up in America, as well as being a diabetic. A lot of struggles there, but all three of us currently manage it really well, and we've danced and performed throughout North America. We just went to LA in May of last year. Unfortunately, we were going to go again this year, but the competition is canceled right now.
Was it ironic that he was also a type 1, or did the diabetes community kind of like bond you guys together?
It's really funny. You know, he lives in Troy. He's not that far away. He was the captain of the Michigan Bhangra team. That's the type of dance we do, Bhangra. And, you know, I was one of the captains for our independent team based out of Detroit. And we met at a competition in New York, but had never met before that. And we were, I think, in a taxi on the way to an after party. And I saw him pull out his pump. And he's like, "Oh my God, I just ran out of insulin." I'm like, "Don't worry, I have my pen with me. Use this." He's like, "Oh my God, you're diabetic." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then he ended up paying for the taxi, which was great. So but that's how we bonded. He joined our team and we started the academy together.
That's amazing. So what's awesome about like our like little group right now that we have going is that we just don't have one type of diabetes. We have all different types of diabetes, especially like right here on our chat. We have type 1, type 2, and Mila, you discussed having type 2 diabetes. Can you talk about just type 2 diabetes in like the social media space, maybe some things that you've encountered?
Yeah, so it's really interesting having type 2 diabetes and being someone who openly talks about it, because not a lot of people with type 2 diabetes like to talk about it. And I think that often comes from the shame or stigma that they might feel with type 2. And something that I always found interesting, like I love to search hashtags and just see what people are talking about. And one of the things that I did when I was first diagnosed is I kind of looked through a type 2 diabetes hashtag, and it was really interesting to see the perceptions. Like somebody would post a picture of a cupcake and be like, "This is going to give me type 2 diabetes," or they would post a picture of what, you know, you would think the like average person with type 2 diabetes might look like, and kind of label it that way. And so it was really important to me when I was first diagnosed to find other people who really wanted to talk about type 2 diabetes and living a healthy life with diabetes and not feeling that shame and stigma, but to also break up those misconceptions about what type 2 diabetes is and who has it and what they look like and what their abilities are, because it's exactly the opposite really of what anybody thinks.
And you do such an amazing job on social media. You like blew up with everything that you're doing right now. I know you have your blog and you just published a little journal. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that I really like to do to manage diabetes for myself, and it's just like this habit of writing, like I love to write. And so I thought to myself, like, I wonder if other people would want to have a journal where they don't just log like their food and exercise and maybe like their doses of insulin or medications that they take, but also their sleep patterns and the emotions that they're feeling that day and like all of those other factors that really relate to type 2 diabetes. Because I think whenever you go to the doctor for the first time, most people say in their experience, they're told, eat right, exercise, come back and see me in 3 months for your A1C. And so they think that all you have to do to manage type 2 is changes your diet and exercise, when there are this like host of all of these other factors that really have to do with like the way that your blood sugars ebb and flow. So it was important to me to produce something like that and give people something that they could record those feelings in. And so it's really cool. I'm really excited about it. And it comes out on Cinco de Mayo, which is fun. So I'm going to have like a little margarita by myself with my little book.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you all that you do on social media. And talking about social media, Kira, you are a superstar on social media. And you also have a type 1 daughter. So can you discuss maybe what like the diabetes community on your social media platform, and also what it's like being a mother and daughter in the same house with type 1 diabetes?
Yes. So I started sharing about just my type 1 journey, like kind of right off the bat after being diagnosed 5 years ago. And I think social media has changed even so much just in the last 5 years. I feel like it wasn't quite as loud, not as many people were talking. And so it did feel a little bit scary and vulnerable to like share what felt like such big news for me. And we were in Uganda adopting our son, and then 2 months later started fostering our daughter, who also has type 1, and forever became a part of our family. But because we were 9,000 miles away, I feel like social media was the only way for me to feel connected to other people that were walking this same journey. Diabetes can feel really isolating and lonely sometimes, and then to not even have like my friends or family close by was really hard. And so I like really relied on making friendships online, because that is what got me through some really hard days. It's the way I had questions answered. I didn't have super easy access to an endocrinologist. I couldn't just like hop on the phone and call back to the States. The resources in Uganda are just, very different than they are in the States. And so it was so important for me, I think for my own mental health, just to know that there were other people out there that were doing the same thing. And it was, turned out to be such a blessing, because I feel like now some of my absolute best friends all either have type 1, or they're a parent of a type 1, or somehow connected to that. And that's really special for me. It's really special for my daughter, because her 2 best friends, one of them has type 1 and the other one is a sibling of a type 1. And so it's just really cool for her to feel seen and understood. And so, yeah, we just kind of like used, I think Instagram is the main thing that I share on. And then we also like have a blog as well, but Instagram was really kind of where I shared just like our daily life. And at the time it wasn't quite as common. And so, it was just kind of like, this is diabetes. Like, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. And just, I was kind of learning as I was going. And I realized that there were a lot more of us out there than, when I was first diagnosed. So yeah, it's been a really, I want to say cool journey, but diabetes is never like easy. It's not the best thing to have, but there's been a lot of really positive and beautiful parts to this journey.
And it's so amazing, because I've met you and your family with different events in the diabetes community. And just the fact that like you and your family, and especially Zola being so young, she's already involved in the diabetes community at such a young age. And I feel like it took even just like most of us such a long time to find that online and even like in the community diabetes space. So it's incredible, like especially everything, online today, how it just kind of connected us all. And that's kind of, you have a journey with diabetes, and same thing here. And you have a daughter with type 1, you're a type 1, and I have a brother with type 1 diabetes, and we were diagnosed a year apart in the 90s. And as many as we all agree on how diabetes education was so different, even the 90s, right? And just like, even like just like 10 years ago, things have like progressed so much. And that's kind of like where I began my diabetes journey, was about, I would say on social media, was 5 years ago. And I noticed, I just kind of came across a profile one day and saw another diabetic. And I was like, oh my God, there's someone else. There's someone else out there, not just me. And that's what kind of like really like ignited that spark, and kind of what brought me into the space. And it's just, I feel like there's just so much information out there. And sometimes as diabetics, we just don't get that. And so now we all became like our own advocates, patient advocates, and we're just doing so much in the diabetes space. But I'm going to take it down to the questions and see if there's a few questions some people have asked, and maybe we could get some questions answered. Let's see here. So it looks like we have a question. I think it was to Kiri. What major life changes do people with 9 diabetes have to be aware of to support our friends and family with diabetes, like diabetes etiquette?
Okay, I'm trying to understand the question. What major life changes? Oh, okay, I think I get it. I feel like answering diabetes questions is sometimes so hard, because it's not like a simple answer. I think the very best thing that people did for us was friends who came alongside and just said like, I don't know anything about diabetes, but I want to learn. Like, please teach me. Like, tell me what these words are that you're saying, that you're using. Like, what is this thing on your body? How does it work? Like, that was like the greatest gift to me. You know, people who would say, you know, everybody's always really cautious about food. I think that's kind of like the go-to, which is always such like a sweet gesture. But I think people just saying like, what is this like for you? And like, what can I do to make your day easier? And, you know, being a mom also to a child with type 1 is like a whole nother aspect to it. Cause, you know, as an adult, like I can manage it myself, but then I have a child who that's a lot scarier to hand her over to somebody else. And to have a couple friends that just said like, we want you to feel confident that she can have a sleepover and that like you can have a day off. And those type of things were the absolute best. So if you are somebody who doesn't have type 1, but are looking for a way to support somebody or a family that has type 1, just be willing to like get in the trenches with them. And like, there's going to be hard days, but just learn as best you can, like what those things are that they need that really offer them the best support.
Very well said. I agree too. And I think as, you know, when we're living with other people, non-diabetics, I think it's so hard, you know, sometimes not to feel judged when we have a low blood sugar or have a high blood sugar. Sometimes our mood changes, and it's so important, you know, not to like scream and yell or get frustrated, because diabetes is so hard to manage sometimes. Like, we have really great days, but we also have some bad days, and we just need support. Sometimes the best way to support us is just kind of like making sure we're okay, but also taking a step back and just letting us, you know, get back to feeling normal again. I don't know if you feel the same, Mila or Sahil, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think sometimes, you know, and speaking from the perspective of type 2, sometimes questions that you get, and I think that you guys probably get some of the same questions that I get about diabetes from people who don't know. Sometimes they come from a place of wanting to help or a place of wanting to understand, but they can feel judgmental at times. And so like taking a step back and just realizing that you can give someone just some extra information to help them understand and give examples and kind of show them how you live with it and how you live it out to help them get an idea of what they can do to be there for you.
Right. And I think both of you guys answered it really well. The main thing I've noticed is what works for someone doesn't always work for someone else. Unfortunately, it is somewhat of a trial and error game, and you do need to take things with precaution. If there's something you're interested in, like I know someone asked about the oral medication I take. I asked my endocrinologist if it was okay. She had me wait. She checked some of my monthly, my monthly results, and then she said, "Hey, go ahead and try it now. It's safe to do so." So before trying anything, just talk to your doctor if that's available, and then go ahead and make a decision on what you want to do next.
We have another question here, and this is a great one. What is the biggest piece of advice that you would offer to a child recently diagnosed with type 1?
I can start off that because I don't know life without diabetes. So when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, I had no idea what this was. We used to call it sugar bugs or something like that. And I remember when I went to the doctor, I'm like, "Oh, you're talking about sugar bugs." I didn't even know it was called diabetes. But the most important thing is to let them know that they're not limited to doing, nothing, right? I played like 4 sports in high school, danced all my life. I've done some things academically that, not many people have done, which is phenomenal. And diabetes has never limited me because of that. And so to think that you have this disease and you can't do anything is the completely wrong mindset that no child should ever buy into or believe. And I'm sure Kiri and Mila can answer more to that as well.
Yeah, and even for me, I grew up as a child with diabetes as well as my brother, and I know that we were fortunate enough to attend a diabetes camp. And I know they have them all over the country. But what's also great is that there's also so many scholarships out there as well. So sometimes even if they're a little expensive, there's so many, scholarships out there where you can apply and maybe you could get your child enrolled at a diabetes camp or a day camp. But I know so many organizations across the board, especially JDRF, there's always different activities going on for kids. So definitely involve kids young if you can in the diabetes community, because acceptance early on is just so important. I wish I had just more of it, even as a teenager. There's so many lost years. And then when you find that acceptance, you're like, oh my God, I wish I had this like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because now so many of us are thriving with diabetes and we're doing so much. I know a couple years ago, I was scuba certified, and diabetics at one time weren't able to be a scuba dive. So it's so many, all these stereotypes out there, but it's important that, we break them and know that we're doing so much. We're thriving with diabetes. I don't know, Carrie, Mila.
I mean, I was an adult, and so I think I have a very different perspective because I went 26 years knowing what it's like to live without it. But in my own experience, I wasn't a child, but I think what I heard a lot of right off the bat was like, you have diabetes and here's all the things that you can't do anymore. And that was like the first thing that stuck in my head. And that was so hard for me because I felt like my whole life was like over, like everything was changing. And I think that's why I feel such, it's just so important to talk about all the things you can do with diabetes, because there's newly diagnosed families and kids out there that are listening. And like, I think those need to be the voices that are heard. Like, watching people do like really cool, crazy stuff with diabetes, it doesn't have to stop you. So I would just say focus on the positive and the things that you can do, and just remind them that it doesn't have to limit you from anything.
We also have another question here. I'm a school nurse who is seeing more young kids being you don't mind, Mila. I know that you do so much in the type 2 community. Do you have any suggestions or resources to help guide people?
Yeah, so I'm a part of the leadership council for Beyond Type 1, even as a type 2, which is really cool. So Beyond Type 1, I feel like, is a great resource for people just looking for both basic information about living with type 1 diabetes, but also kind of like this additional layer of seeing people with type 1 diabetes as well. And that's the thing that I think that I appreciate so much and have found to be so important about coping with living with diabetes, is knowing that there are other people out there like you, and being able to connect with people on that basic level. And I think we've all found that, all four of us met through social media pretty much. And so it's this really powerful tool. And I think the Beyond Type 1 website is just a great place to go for those stories. But also, like, if you have a question about how to deal with low blood sugar swings, or you want to know kind of what you can or can't eat, or you want to know like, is a pump a better option than MDI? Should I use a CGM? They answer those questions in such easy ways to understand that it's an awesome tool, an awesome resource.
Yeah, Beyond Type 1 is amazing. I know that like you said, they have Beyond Type 2, and they just have an array of amazing resources. So definitely check those out. Okay, I have this one from Chris. What advice do you have for someone on their first year with diabetes? I know for me, it's just, I think finding some sort of support goes such a long way. For me, it was finding the diabetes online community. If you can't attend things in person, there's such an amazing community out there, and getting involved is just, I feel like, will help so much guide newly diagnosed type 1 and type 2 diabetics out there. It'll make you question and it's just, there's just so many different ways to manage your diabetes, and it's never a one size fits all. Diabetes is so different from person to manage and tricks. So, maybe what works for one person might not work. There's so much information out there. Definitely immerse yourself in the community. And if you could find a support group, I think that would definitely, be beneficial. Let's see here. I don't know if anyone has anything to piggyback off of that, or if we could move on to the next question.
I think that was great.
Yeah, that was good, Julia.
Oh, this is a great one from Denise Fasahil. How long does the impact of dance have on your blood sugar?
So, I mean, dance in general is any type of cardio sport, right? I remember from high school and college as well, I ran cross country. So I like to compare the two a lot. You need to be within a good range to make sure you can perform well, but you have to hold on to that. You have to have something to back you up, because you will drop low depending on how long you're participating. We used to have 4 or 5 hour dance practices, and I don't remember when I didn't go low during those times. So I always kept Gatorade and glucose tablets with me. Obviously, so those don't have as much of a health issue as you otherwise would. Like, it's not like I kept candy with me while I was dancing, because that would have been detrimental. But in short, always keep something with you just to be safe, or you will go low.
And we have another question here from Mila. What advice would you give someone with type 2 that is nervous to talk about their diabetes? How did you build that confidence?
I really love that question.
Okay.
So when I was first diagnosed, I was really frustrated because I was doing everything that my doctor had told me to do. I lost 30 pounds before I set foot in the doctor's office. I was watching what I ate. I was exercising every single day, an hour a day, intense cardio. And he walked away kind of blaming me, saying, like, if you're 26 years old, you're going to ruin your life. You're in this position that's awful, so you need to change everything. And I was like, but what more can I do? Like, I don't know. And so the first thing I did after I was diagnosed is I went and I literally Googled, like, how do you live with type 2 diabetes, which sounds really dumb, but I was like, I don't know anybody else really who is managing this that's my age and that has like a similar story to me. I want to find someone. And I did find someone, but they told me no. They told me, I don't want to talk to you. I don't write my blog for anyone else. I do it because I want to learn about my diabetes and vent, and that's it. And I don't want to have any connection with anyone else. And so that was really frustrating for me because I was looking for that connection with someone else. And I just thought, if nobody else wants to talk about it, I'm going to do that. And along the way, I kind of noticed the way that people talked about type 2 diabetes and the way that people felt about it. And my goal after that, like after hearing things like, people would say like, well, if you're fat, of course you have type 2 diabetes, or if you probably ate too much sugar and that's why you have diabetes. And that frustrated me to no end. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to prove people wrong. Like, I'm going to show them that the thing that you think about diabetes is like not actually true. And I kind of realized that I was one of the few people doing that. And what gave me confidence in that area was just thinking there's somebody else out there like me who's looking for this exact thing. And when I was looking for it, I really needed someone. Like, I needed somebody to just tell me it's going to be okay. You can live with this. You're going to be all right. And nobody was there. And so I thought, if I could be that person for someone else, it would be really helpful. And I could make them think about their diabetes in a different way. And so that to me kind of built that. And then as more people found my website or found my Instagram and they started saying like, I was looking for this, thank you, I'm so glad you're here, that made me feel like, okay, I did the right thing. And I've always kind of been of the opinion that type 2 diabetes is nothing to be ashamed of. It purely means that your body resists insulin. That's it. And there are things that you have to do to kind of change your lifestyle to make sure that your body is more receptive. And when you think about it in terms like that, instead of thinking about all of the things that you did wrong, it really changes your perspective about how you talk about it and how you live with it.
Wow. Amazingly said.
Thank you.
We have a question here for Kiri. What was the hardest thing or most difficult about helping Zola, a young child, understand about her diabetes?
Okay, so our situation was obviously really unique in the sense that Zola was adopted and she didn't speak any English when she joined our family. So like she didn't even understand the word hello. So communication was really hard for us. So in Uganda, I like went to town and bought like a dictionary from her language to English, and I would write things on the wall and tape it up so I could like communicate. That obviously was probably one of the hardest things. Not everybody has that same challenge. I think as a parent, just like your child's like world kind of turned upside down in a way, like everything changes. And in Uganda, there wasn't anybody else that had type 1, so she wasn't exposed to that. And I think that's even, you know, a similar case for people here in the States is like, you know, a kid gets diagnosed and they go back to school after they get that diagnosis, and chances are there's not a lot of kids at school that have diabetes. So I think, you know, they feel different, but trying to really make them understand that this is just a little part of them. It doesn't define who they are. I mean, I think the hardest thing is to explain like it's not going away. You know, she'll say like, so like how long am I mean, not now because she understands, but at first it was like, how long am I going to have diabetes? And that was really hard to explain to, you know, a 6-year-old, like that it's not going away. And so, yeah, I mean, it's all hard. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it and make it seem like it was easy, but yeah, I think just helping them to find a new normal, a new rhythm, but just making them feel as normal as possible is so important.
That's incredible, and I think that's so important. And the fact that you help guiding her and the fact that you understand everything she's going through, that is just like incredible. And I'm sure it's just a very special bond between you two.
Yeah, I will say like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, it's a unique situation to have type 1 and also be the parent to a type 1. And I think it gives me just a really great understanding of what she's going through and what it's like for her as much as I can. Obviously, being a child and adult is very different, but, you know, there's a lot of moms that will say like, can you explain to me what like high blood sugar feels like? Because like I don't feel that. Like I watch my child go through that, but I don't know what it feels like. And I mean, obviously nobody wants to have diabetes, but like, I think that it's really special that like, I really can understand those things to like best advocate for her.
And I know Fiona asked a question, and she said that she's had a hard time finding local diabetes. She's attended a few different type 1 events and recently joined the Beyond Type 1 app, which has been great, but just haven't had much luck. Any advice? And Fiona, I could definitely take the lead on this one. So I'm based in Detroit Metro, and we have diabetes meetups once a month. So we try to get I know like we have like adult type 1 meetup that we do, which is monthly. But I know that, like I said, different organizations will definitely host different events depending on what age group you're looking for. And that is such a great way to connect with other diabetics, because you just never know who you're going to meet one day and they turn out to be, you know, maybe one of your best diabetes ever. When I went to camp, this was like, I feel like it's been like 20 years since camp, but I speak to 2 of the girls to this day that I went to camp with, and we've moved all over, right? Everyone has like different directions in life, but like in 2020, like we're still connected. We started off as pen pals, and to this day, now we could just like, you know, FaceTime and meet up. So I think it's just finding, you know, maybe also things online. I know if you're on Facebook, if you're able to be on Facebook or any social media platform, there's so many amazing diabetes support groups. And I know some of those groups do a lot of in-person meetups as well. I'm not sure if Kiri or Mila or Sahil, if you have anything to add to just finding
same thing you said.
I think too, like in the spirit of like, if you can't find it, start it, you know, like you can just branch out and reach out to people that you may know locally, or reach out to like local chapters and just ask like if they have anything that is happening. And if they don't, ask if you can be the person to kind of take it on and build it and help people grow those connections.
Amazing.
Love that.
And I think we have just a few more moments, so maybe we can wrap up. This one might be interesting for all of us because we handle our diabetes differently. But we have a question here that says, how long does exercise affect your blood sugar? Is it hours? Is it days? And I know that this answer is going to be completely different for every single person here. So Sahil, is that something you may be able to start us off with?
Yeah, sure. I can start. With dance and any level of cardio I've done, my sugar starts getting low right away. However, when I lift weights or exercise in that essence, my sugar goes up. It's interesting why it happens like that. So I constantly keep my pump on me when I'm lifting weights or exercising. But if I'm doing anything cardiovascularly related, I'll take everything off and make sure I'm not getting anything in excess.
And I know for me, when I'm working out, I always try to like have a time where I'm going to work out. It's not just kind of like sporadic, because that way I can really plan according to what I'm going to do that day, whether it's cardio or whether it's weights, because I know with cardio, your blood sugar could drop quickly. So it's important that you see your blood sugar before you enter the gym. If you know you're going to be doing cardio that day, maybe have a light little snack beforehand, just so it kind of carries you. I like my blood sugars I rather have them on more of the higher side than lower side, just so I have that wiggle room if I do drop a little bit. And then I know for weights, for me, is that my blood sugars will either stay like exactly like when I enter the gym, or they'll just like start to spike. And there's all different reasons for all that. But it really, I feel like it's so important to kind of like have a plan. That way you can kind of just be able to really just manage it the best you can while working out.
Hey, Jillian?
Yes, ma'am.
5-minute warning. So can you maybe look for the two best last questions? And we've got 5 minutes before I need to prepare for our next panelist.
Okay, here. I know that we have a question right here in front of me. What is the best diet you found to help manage your blood sugar levels? And that question was directed for Mila.
For me, honestly, carb counting just works best. I like to eat everything that I can eat. And I manage it best by just kind of like figuring out what things do spike me, what things don't. And then working from that kind of like base knowledge. So like, I know that if I'm eating like a pretty low carb dinner, I'm okay to have dessert afterward, as long as I kind of like stay within a realm. So I don't really follow anything in particular. I just kind of do what feels right. And that's probably not helpful at all, but it's the way it's worked best for me. And I kind of find that when I don't limit myself and I don't kind of like take the approach of like, I can't have this or I can't have that, I always tend to do much better and kind of stay within the boundaries that I place for myself.
And I'm the same way with that. I feel like there's just no specific diet that I follow. It's just, I feel like I will have anything and eat anything, but just everything's in moderation and just making sure that I give myself the appropriate insulin. I feel like there's just no really like rules of like what I can and cannot eat. But yeah. I know we have like another minute or two, and I know a couple people here were actually asking about where to find us on social media. And one of the questions, Kiri, was if you have a YouTube channel. I don't know if everyone wants to just kind of say where they can be found on social media. You want to start, Kiri?
Yeah, so I mainly hang out on Instagram. It's called Grace and Salt. And then we also have a website, and it's graceandsalt.net.
And you have an incredible Etsy shop, by the way. Mila, for you?
I am the Hangry Woman everywhere. So if you just search for the Hangry Woman, you'll find me everywhere I am.
And Sahil, where can we all find you?
Well, I know you know how reluctant I was to start an Instagram, but it seems like everyone's there. So I just made one very recently. It's just at Sahil Mehta 313. And then I also use it for my DJ page, DJ Suga, SUGA 313.
Is that like a diabetes reference?
Yeah, it was purely based on something diabetic related.
And for me, I'm on across the board like Mila, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everything is at T1D Chick. But thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for everybody for participating on our virtual today. And if anyone has any questions beyond like our little virtual, you can always reach out, I'm sure, to any of us on social media, and we could help answer any questions that you might have.
All right, sorry, get my sound back on. Thank you so much. It was really, really entertaining, engaging, and learned so much. I really wish we would have gotten Sahil to do a dance. I didn't think about that ahead of time. So I really wish that would have happened. And Mila, it was great having your type 2 voice here. I think that has been missing the last few days. And all of your voices were just wonderful today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting JDRF. Have a great night. And also before you leave, turn off your video and your microphones, but you can also type into the chat box where people can find you before you go. Okay? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
And Carrie Gazelle and Rob, I'm going to bring you on in just a second. I just have a few housekeeping things to do, and then I'm going to bring you guys on. I will call out when I'm ready for you. All right, just a little bit of housekeeping for those of you that may have joined us at the last minute. In the upper right-hand screen, you have ways of changing so that you can see all the presenters at once, so that you could see Rob and his presentation. But if you're in full screen mode, you have to escape that first before you can do that. As you've noticed, you're all muted and we can't see you, but we want to engage. I know Rob wants to engage with you. So you're going to use the Q&A box if you want to ask questions of Rob, because at the end of his talk, I'm going to ask him those questions. And then also the chat box, if you guys want to talk to each other or just say, hey, that's cool, or just share your experience, you can do that from within the chat box. Also, if you want to ask a question of me or April, the co-host, how to do something, that you can do in the chat box, and we'll respond back to you as soon as we can. I always forget which keyboard is working this. Okay, we want you to be social with us. Use our hashtags, Type1Nation, Stronger Together, and JDRF when you are being social. Rob, thank you for being social all day. I've been catching what you've been putting out there, and it's wonderful. And we're streaming live on YouTube right now. And April's going to put that link in the chat box so you guys can put it out on social media so people can join even if they haven't registered. So we can't be with you in person these days. And at least until the end of June, we're not going to do anything in person, but we're still going to have our gala because there was no way we were going to go a year without that. So West Michigan, Southeast Michigan, we're all joining together for one big gala on June 4th. You are all welcome to attend. It's free. It's going to be online, virtual, and fun. We'll even have a DJ, a silent auction that has got some really cool stuff that I have my eye on. You just bid right online. It's pretty cool. You can see when someone's outbidding you. And then there's going to be a live auction as well. A ton of inspiration. Our youth ambassadors will be coming to you live. So please join us on June 4th and have the experience that is the gala. And our gala is presented to us by Ford Motor Company. And Ford is not just the presenting sponsor of our gala. They're our partner throughout the year for over 20 years. And in fact, no other corporate partner has done more to fund JDRF research than our very own Ford. Over $70 million to date they have given to JDRF. And I want to share a special thank you message that Aaron Kowalski recently sent out to Ford employees.
How do we even begin to say thank you? Your support at Ford is making it so much better for me, Edsel Ford's son, and the more than 1.6 million people with type 1 diabetes to live every day, and to advance research that will cure this disease. There is no way to express the depth of our thanks. Please know how much of an impact each of you is having, and know that together we will cure T1D.
It's walk time, time to register, time to start fundraising. And you know, if you're not prepared to fundraise right now, it's you know, a hectic time and so forth, you can start getting ready. Start finding all that stuff in your house for a garage sale once we're allowed to go back out. Turn some virtual parties into fundraisers, but it's also time to sign up. I know that Crystal and April and I all want you to sign up for one of the 5 walks this fall, and you'll notice that we moved our East Lansing into late October instead of August. We thought August was a bit risky for the chance for us to be together, because we're really hoping that we're going to be able to do these live. If we do end up doing them virtual, they'll be great also, but we're hoping that we get to see you in person. And we want to say thank you to our JDRF volunteers. It is the National Volunteer Week, but this week, every day, every minute, we are thankful for our volunteers. You're all working so hard for JDRF, for all that we do, and we sincerely thank you. And as we say at JDRF, we're all stronger together. And, you know, our volunteers are really key to our fundraising efforts. With many of JDRF's spring fundraising events canceled or postponed, the funding of future research is in jeopardy. In order to meet this challenge, we are asking our supporters who are able to contribute to our Fundacure program. Fundacure provides JDRF with the dollars needed to move therapies and technologies out of the lab and into the waiting hands of the T1D community. 100% of your Fundacure contribution goes directly to our mission and is fully tax deductible. Although these are uncertain times when so many things seem beyond our control, there is one thing we can control and take great pride in, and that is ensuring JDRF's mission to cure type 1 diabetes continues. Our Youth Ambassador Kendall would like to tell you how your donations have helped her live a more robust life.
Hi, my name is Kendall Chamberlain and I have T1D. Thanks to donations to JDRF from people like you, I am able to be more independent. I participate in many school activities. I also perform in dance and theater. Since I was diagnosed at 7, my treatment has gotten easier to manage. I now use a CGM to monitor my sugar and an insulin pump that delivers insulin throughout the day. Your continued support means that our lives will only get easier. Thank you for all your support.
All right, can I ask Carrie Gazelle to please turn on your video and sound? Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
Carrie is from our great partner, Novo Nordisk, and she is here to introduce our next speaker, Rob Howe.
All righty. Hi, everyone. In just a few quick comments I have, I've been with the JDRF here in Michigan since the get-go. I know Dr. Grunberger talked about the very first one. So in 2007, Denise grabbed me up, and we've been collaborating as a company with JDRF here in Michigan since then. And it's really not just locally, it's a worldwide thing. Novo Nordisk provides about half of the world's insulin. So when you guys walk into the pharmacy or walk into your physician's office and you see insulin, you don't really see the face behind it. But there's a really deep history behind that. So for almost 100 years now, we've been working with communities, with patients, with physicians, with organizations like the JDRF, in order to help patients through innovation, through research, And there's a lot of things right now, especially going on. And I was really, I don't know if you guys can see this with my camera or not, but you might have seen this in the paper, the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post. It's been difficult to get ads in the paper lately. People don't want to pay for ads, but Nova really wants to know that we care, we're out there. And as with other companies too, there's a lot of really good resources. So I know Tammy and Denise are gonna post some of those resources for patients that are having affordability issues. We've always done that. We've always stepped up to the game. So I appreciate the relationships that I've had with you guys, and just ask everybody to take advantage of those resources and see the face behind your insulin. And with that, I am excited to introduce Rob. I think he's there shortly. So basically, Rob is going to have an exciting lecture here. He's an entrepreneur. He's a marketing strategist. He's a podcaster, and he's a former pro basketball player. He's a founder of Diabetics Doing Things, and he's a type 1 diabetes champion. Rob, in 2015, Rob founded the Diabetics Doing Things in an effort to raise awareness around amazing things that type 1 diabetics are doing around the world. There you have it, Rob.
Rob, you can turn on your audio and video.
Okay. Hi. Am I live? Is this? Can everybody see me? Awesome.
You're live.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much for the introduction.
You're welcome.
And I really just want to say, before I get started, thank you so much, Detroit. I saw that Mike Hoskins and Jeff Humanian are in the attendees, and I got to tell you, 3 years ago, I met Jeff for the first time, and we talked about me coming out to Detroit, which I finally got to do last year. And I was going to come back this year, but obviously travel plans for everybody got derailed. But I'm just so glad to be here with you guys, and you guys have an awesome chapter, and you've made me feel so welcome last year. So I'm really excited to be back here today. So actually, Tammy, I'm going to share my screen here. Make sure, and you tell me if if it's visible.
You got it. Yep.
All right, and I'm going to go full screen here. I think. Oop.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, how does that look for you guys? Is that full screen?
Not yet. Right now it's black.
Okay, and still black?
Yep.
Okay, well, then I'm going to try something different.
I can see it from within the Adobe file, which if we have to do it that way, we can.
Yeah, we may have to. Let's see. Just gonna adjust. As you guys know, Zoom technical difficulties are part of the gig.
I've been saying all week. This is really live because I have been adjusting all week. This is the first time all of my videos played right.
Oh well, I should have gotten more practice from you. How does that look? I feel like that's
that looks
probably
good. That looks
okay.
Good, and I can see you off in the corner of my screen, so I think we're good.
Brilliant. Okay, so my talk today is called it's my story. Last year I did a talk, and for the last few years I've been going around to other JDRF chapters and talking about my podcast and about tools of type 1s and what I've learned from the diabetes community. But this year I wanted to change it a little bit and talk about my story and how I have gone from professional basketball player to professional diabetic. And we'll talk a little bit about that throughout. Because I am like many of you, I live with diabetes. And when I was diagnosed, I had an amazing team of doctors. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was a very rare experience. And because of JDRF and the education that they provided in partnership with the hospital where I was diagnosed, I had this amazing outlook presented to me by my care team. And so I start all of my presentations with this for all of you guys, and that's that all your dreams are still valid. So if you take nothing away from my presentation, if you have to go now, or if there's like, you're cooking dinner and the boiling water is overflowing and you've made pasta this week more than the rest of your life combined, that's fine. Take this away. All the dreams that you have for your life are still within reach as long as you take care of your diabetes. And what I didn't know when my care team told me that is that would set the framework for everything that I wanted for my life at the time. I was diagnosed at 16, but before I get into that, I did want to say that I wrote this presentation on March 5th. So that was, you know, a little over a month ago, about 6 weeks ago. And I took this photo on an airplane March 6th. And this is my fiance, Erica. And I put this in here because I wanted you guys to know that the world is a very different place from the time that I wrote this presentation first. We have all had some sort of big impact, whether economic, whether health-wise, whether just sheltering at home. And I wanted to express to you guys that I've been to 25 of these events over the past 2.5 years. And I will never take for granted being able to gather as a diabetes community again. And you know, I think there's so much power in us gathering here online, and this may be our new normal for the foreseeable future. But I look forward to the day that next time that we're all in the same room together, and I could look at you all in the eyes, and shake your hands, and tell my story to you guys. So I did want to say, like, wherever you are out there, whatever is coming your way, I see you, I hear you. It's hard for me as well. I put on a good face and I make a lot of jokes, but this is a real situation that's very different and very hard, and change is difficult. So if you're feeling a little bit stressed, I put this in there just because I wanted to know that during this time, I'm appreciative that I get to come here and talk to you guys online, but I look forward to the next time that we can gather together as a diabetes community, because my life has changed and is much better because of that opportunity. Okay, so back to the story. Enough preamble, enough side conversations from me. Part one, I love this game. When I was 16 years old, I had obviously a great mop top of hair, as you guys can see. It's clear that those curls are flowing, and that was my #1 basketball skill, obviously, was the hair. I also learned a thing about myself. You see that picture there in the bottom right? I was an influencer in training early. I like to stand in front of walls and have my picture taken. And for most of you guys, you'll know that that's all influencers do. We stand in front of things and people take pictures of us. So this is just me getting started for my career early. But basketball was the most important thing to my life. And that when I was on the way to the hospital for diagnosis, there was like sad music playing. My mom and I were driving. It was New Year's Day, 2005. It was a rainy, cold, kind of gray Dallas day. And the Postal Service was on my mom's radio. So like a single tear came down my eye, and I didn't know what to do. And the first thought was, am I going to be able to play basketball again? Because that was the most important thing for me. And my entire life, it had been my favorite thing. So when I got to my doctors and I got to my diabetes education team, and they said, whatever dreams you have for your life are still within reach, the first thing I said was, oh, I want to play basketball. In my whole life, my dream had been play college and then have a chance to go play in the pros. And for that, that was my #1 thing. When my doctors told me I could do that as long as I took care of myself, I filtered almost all of my diabetes decisions through that goal. I was able to become one of the best basketball players in the state of Texas at the time in high school. I got a college scholarship to the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. And then I had a chance to go play professionally on playing against, most famously, the world famous Harlem Globetrotters. I was the first ever type 1 diabetic member of the Washington Generals. So here are 3 photos. I'll let you guess which one of these photos I don't have diabetes in. Hint, hint, it's the one on the far left. And that's me and my sister and my brother at our house when I was younger. There's me in the middle. That's a picture of me playing basketball at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. And then that picture on the right, this was a big moment for me. It was in 2012. And I was off the coast of Iran, so in the Persian Gulf, playing a basketball game on an aircraft carrier, the USS John C. Stennis. So I remember coming out of the game, we're on the flight deck. I come out, I sit down, I look over the side, and there's like a 60-foot drop off to the ocean, and we're in the middle of the Persian Gulf. You can't see land on any of the sides. And I was like, wow, what a day this is. This is a pretty cool thing that I get to do. So, I think that like all dreams, eventually my playing days came to an end. And when I was 25 years old, it became pretty clear that I wasn't going to be able to make basketball my career as a player anymore. And so, once my career ended, I had a choice to make. I had to say, okay, well, what am I going to do now? I've defined my entire life by being a basketball player, by being an athlete. What is the next step? So within that, I want to take a little side before we kind of go into the story of diabetics doing things. By the way, here's another picture of me in front of a wall. This is 2 pictures of me in front of a wall for those of you keeping score at home. But I want to talk about achievement culture in diabetes. You guys have seen a lot of amazing, inspiring people that have spoken to you at this summit this week. Some of them are my really good friends, and I've known them and they've become my awesome friends in diabetes. But I want you to know that I'm not here giving you this talk because I was such a superb, amazing professional athlete. As a professional athlete, I honestly wasn't that good, but I did make it. So I'm leaving it there. But I want you to know that you don't have to be a professional athlete to have an inspiring story with diabetes. You don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to be an actor. You don't have to be a movie star. Your story with diabetes matters. Outside of playing a couple of really cool games against the Harlem Globetrotters, my sports career is not that exciting. I did my best every time I could, and I played really hard, and I played for as long as I could. But I want you guys to know that you don't have to do that. If you're like, man, Rob, I just am not that into sports. I'm really, I don't want to be on the big stage. Public speaking gives me anxiety. That's super normal. You can be a totally regular person, and your story matters. So I don't want you guys out there to get discouraged by all of these amazing people that we're talking to. I want you guys to feel encouraged by sometimes a huge win in the diabetes world means you woke up and you made it to school on time, or you made it through a work meeting after you got a low alarm. Your achievements are not, your worth as a diabetic is not based on your achievement. So I want you guys to take that away from this as well. Before I founded Diabetics Doing Things in 2015, I'd had diabetes for 10 years. Wow, my fingers disappeared in the background there. I had diabetes for 10 years and I didn't really talk about it. In fact, I used to hide it. I tell a story where I met someone for the first time at a Chipotle. He walked up and he saw my pump tubing hanging in my shorts, and his pump tubing, he had a pump as well. And he's like, hey man, me too. And then he just tapped my pump and then ran away. He disappeared like a little gnome. And he, up until that point, I had never seen myself as a diabetic. I, of course, told my friends and my family knew, and I was open with them about my care, but I wasn't public about it. And that was something that I didn't know at the time was really negatively affecting me. Sahil mentioned on the last panel that it took him a lot of courage to work up to make an Instagram. For me as well, it took a lot of years of not knowing anything about diabetes and not having any friends with diabetes. But in 2015, I got this awesome opportunity. I got to go to Colombia on a work exchange. I don't know if you notice the theme here, but here I am again, standing in front of a wall. So this is 3, maybe 4 for these. So I'm clearly finding my calling here. But in Colombia, I don't speak Spanish, and I also am 6'6", so I stand out like a sore thumb because most people in Colombia are a little bit shorter than that. So I wasn't allowed to leave my hotel without my translator. That's my translator right there, Daniel. He was awesome. And I was there for 2 weeks. So of course he had nights where he had to go do regular things, and honestly probably didn't want to hang out with me too much because speaking English was hard for him. But anyway, so I was in my hotel room by myself, and I decided to use that time to try to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I was 26, about to be 27. And I was kind of shaking my fist at the heavens and that millennial funk, what am I going to do with my life, man? How am I going to help people? Because I remember something that my dad told me when I was younger. He said, you're always happiest when you're helping people. And so I believed that was true. So I said, okay, well, I got to find out something that helps people because that's what's going to make me happy. But who can I help? And just as I said that, and kind of walking through that in my mind, my insulin pump fell out of my gym shorts. You guys know that when you're wearing gym shorts and you're leaning back in a chair, if you have a tube pump, it's going to fall on the floor. It's not a matter of when, it's a matter of, or if, it's a matter of when. And it clattered on the floor, and I looked at it and I had that quick moment of clarity, and I was like, wow, maybe I could help people with diabetes. Maybe my story could help someone who's out there struggling to help achieve their dreams. So I was like, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? I'm gonna try it. And I just listened to this podcast called Serial, which seems weird to mention now, but it's as old, but it's still one of the great podcasts. And I was like, that might be interesting. I've never done a podcast before. What will I call it? So I decided I was going to call it as a working title. I was like, this sounds okay for now. I'll probably change it later. Diabetics Doing Things. And what I didn't know at the time was that there were so many people with diabetes who were doing incredible things, whether they were climbing Mount Everest or running across Canada or 7 marathons in 7 days, or helping people get insulin from across the border and different things along that nature. I was able to meet all these people and talk about the things that they were doing. And it opened up an entire new world for me. And Diabetics Doing Things was born. My goal from the start was to help one person. And I read this article that said, when I was kind of researching about podcasts, I read this article that 80% of the podcasts that were on iTunes at the time only had 3 episodes, because people get excited, they come up with an idea, and then they get distracted or they get busy or they stop doing it. So I committed to doing 10 episodes. And my goal for myself was to help one person. I committed to doing 10 podcast episodes, and I made myself promise that if one person reached out, said it helped them, or said that they liked it, I would continue to do it. Well, I'm still here doing it. It's 2020. That was in 2015. So I'm thankful for the people who reached out during those first 10 episodes and said, hey, this was awesome. This helped me. I want you to keep doing this. So I got thrown into this community that I had no idea about. And it is one of the best things about social media. There's a lot of negativity around social media in general because we're spending too much time on our phones, on our computers. And sometimes a lot of the rhetoric is negative, but there's a lot of positives as well. And the diabetes community is one of those really hidden gems. So most people ask me at this point or in talks like this, Rob, like, how do I get started? Like, I want to go speak. I want to start a podcast. I want to start a blog. And the thing that I tell them is that if you go to my Instagram or Diabetics Doing Things Instagram, you see them today, it looks like, we got some cool stuff going on. We got a lot of posts, we got a lot of followers, but it didn't always start that way. And that was because at the beginning, I remembered that I wanted to change my metrics. I didn't start out to get 1 million downloads. That would have sounded great. I would have agreed that that was cool. But I started with trying to help one person. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And it's honestly like a mind trick. Like if I'm doing things that help one person, then more people are going to get the help that they need. And sometimes that person is me. I'm the person that gets the help. So over the past 4 years, we have done a ton of interviews, over 175. We've published podcasts with guests from all over the world, the US, Canada, Australia, Ireland, UK, Sweden, South Africa, India, all over the world. And we've surpassed 1 million downloads from over 50 countries. And it's also given me the opportunity to speak to people like you. This is my 25th Type 1 Nation Summit. I'm still going to count it, even though I'm not there. We've done 5 live podcasts. I've been to diabetes camps in Colorado and Montana and all over the country. To ADA events, to AAD conferences. And I even got to go to Switzerland one time, which was pretty cool to meet people like us with diabetes over in Europe. And I have some pictures of me in front of, look at me in front of a wall again. Here we go. Awesome. Just living my truth in front of a wall. So I really did go and turn into from a professional basketball player to a professional diabetic. And the craziest thing about all of it is that as I meet more people like you guys, and here's some pictures, these are just from 2020 events, which unfortunately were cut short. After all of this, I learned a few things. And the number one thing that I learned is that being in the diabetes community has tremendous benefits. In a study that I learned, I read this poster session at ADA Scientific Sessions in 2018. And for those of you who don't know what the ADA Scientific Sessions are, it's the biggest conference for endocrinologists and diabetes educators from all over the world. Like 20,000 doctors come to this big event hall and they do a ton of like educational sessions and things like that. And I found this one thing, and the title of it was A1C Outcomes and the Diabetes Community. And what I learned from that study was, I put it right here, 100% of patients in the study who were involved in diabetes blogs and social media had a better A1C outcome than patients who weren't. And I knew that from my life. My A1C, fortunately, I've been very, very privileged and very lucky that my A1C has always been relatively in range. But since I started Diabetics Doing Things, it started at like a 7.1. And since then, it's never been above 6.5. So my clinical outcomes have increased as well. And the life that I live is basically unchanged. So I would encourage you guys all to, if you're not involved in the social media diabetes community, to do so. So here I am. I went from professional athlete to professional diabetic. I went from dunking a basketball to sipping juice boxes on stage wearing the diabetic hoodie. So I transitioned, I evolved, I changed, and I think that you guys can as well. This community is so welcoming. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have been able to come to Detroit had I not met Jeff at a JDRF meeting. So go volunteer at JDRF, get involved in your home chapter, and there's potential for opportunity there. You can help someone, you can make a difference in someone's life. You can be the change that allows a kid like me to hear that his dreams are still valid, even with type 1 diabetes. So I'd encourage you guys to do that. And my call to action for you before we go to Q&A, and I see some questions coming in, I got to figure out how to get to those before I do that. But I want you to do two things. I want you to know that your dreams are valid, whatever they are. They're within your reach. You'll have to take care of your diabetes, but the way that I framed it was the key for me to getting what I wanted was managing my blood sugars and taking care of myself. And if I did that, the whole world was mine. So I want you guys to know that as well. Whatever it is you want to do, it could be crazy. I hope it is. I hope it's crazy. But I want you guys to go out and reach for it and not let your diabetes stop you. And number two, this is a new one for me. Embrace your story. Your story matters. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how you were diagnosed. There may be someone who's in this Zoom room who needs to hear that you're going through the same things that they are. And I'm living proof of that. So, my story has changed a lot over the last few years. I'm a very online person. It's easy to find me. I answer my messages and I love meeting new friends. And I actually have a cool thing coming out this weekend. If you want to learn more about me, you can just go to my Instagram. If you click the link in my bio, this pops up and it has all of the things that I do and sell or promote are in there. And then I also have a live show that's starting this Sunday where I'm going to be interviewing some people who were actually on some of the panels here earlier. And I'm going to be interviewing people live on Instagram and doing a really cool kind of talk show with multiple guests and musical guests and comedy every Sunday at 7 p.m. Central. So I know you guys are on Eastern time, so that'd be 8 p.m. Eastern for you guys. Cool. So with that.
And Rob, I will help moderate with you.
Great.
If you turn off your share.
All right.
Cool.
Stop and share.
We can see you. Yep. Awesome. So first of all, though, I have a couple of questions. First of all,
okay.
I am just like so in awe that you got to play against the Harlem Globetrotters. I grew up with them, and my sister used to pretend she was Metal Arc Lemon, although I think she actually thought she was Metal Arc Lemon. And she would do circles around me in the backyard. We lived for the Harlem Globetrotters. And then why is your dog named Michael J. Fox? Because you're a little too young for Alex P. Keaton, so.
Okay, so two answers, I guess. My playing against the Harlem Globetrotters was like the coolest thing ever, for exactly the reason that you said. Almost everybody has a Harlem Globetrotter story, no matter how old they are, no matter where they come from. The Harlem Globetrotters have been a staple in this country and around the world for the last 80 years. It's pretty incredible to be a part of that. I remember too, like we would play like 6 games a week, and I'd be always tired. We'd be in a new town every day. But in the fourth quarter, they let all the kids storm the court and do the YMCA with the Globetrotters. So when you're on the Generals, you have to sit there and look angry and look mean, and the kids point at you and stuff. But I would always see all those kids run out there having the time of their life, dancing, doing the YMCA with the Harlem Globetrotters, and I would think, you know what, this is pretty cool. And then we would go, and then we would lose. And the second thing is my cat is actually over here somewhere. Yeah, there he is. His name is Michael J. Fox, and that was his name. I adopted him from a friend, but he doesn't answer to Mike. He doesn't answer to Mikey. He answers to Michael. So it's very clear there. I'll actually pick him up.
It's actually just like Alex P. Keaton. Alex was really formal.
Oh. Yeah, there's Michael. He's not much of a keynote speaker, but.
Mine is sleeping as usual in the bedroom. I have found working from home, it's not any different than when I'm away at work. She sleeps.
Yep.
So I do have questions for you.
Great.
First one, what was your most fun podcast you did, and what was your most fun place you visited?
Well, great question, Denise. Hi. My favorite podcast, I interviewed a guy, I guess about almost 4 years ago now, and his name was Jeremy Robertson, and he's a pilot from Australia. And he flew on Qantas Airlines, which is like the big, like it's like the American Airlines of Australia. And he was like their lead pilot at age 31. He trained his entire life to be a pilot. And when he was 31, he landed in LA, and he went to the doctor because when you're a pilot, you have to go get your medicals checked before you take long trips. And his doctor was like, hey man, you need to fly back to Australia right now, but you can't fly. you have to ride, and because you have type 1 diabetes. And he was diagnosed with type 1 at the age of 31. And people like me like might sulk or like get depressed or like get down for a little while about that. But Jeremy decided he was just going to go to medical school and become a doctor. And so now he is. So now he's a pilot and a doctor with type 1, and he's actively working with the FAA on reversing the legislation for people with type 1 diabetes to get their class 1A, I think, medical approval to fly commercial aircraft. And there was a guy, I think last week, that got approved in the US as the first pilot with type 1 insulin dependent diabetes that is cleared for a class 1A medical. So
Wow, that's amazing. Just
getting to meet somebody who's doing those amazing things was just such a privilege. And Jeremy has become a great friend.
And then Christine asks, her son has T1D and he's 11 years old. He plays club soccer and his BS rise during games and then fall fats 1 hour later. How did you manage your BS during basketball games? Did it affect your A1C?
Yeah, so this is a tough question. And I think a lot of people, even who aren't athletes or who just recreational exercise, have this challenge as well. Exercise is difficult. I'll give you some examples. When I was in college, college games are very stressful, very high intensity, and you work really hard to get to them. So my blood sugar would go from like a fasting blood sugar of 80 and it would spike to like 400 before games because I would get so hyped up and so much adrenaline and cortisol in my body. So I would rise during games because it gets really intense, and then I would crash afterwards as well. So I think the thing that I had to do was really look at my insulin on board before I started doing my exercise, playing my games. Practice was also different. Practice and games were different. So I had to get a routine that allowed me not to spike too high, so that I wouldn't have to correct and then crash low later. But yeah, I think the main thing is like when you're young and it feels like you're different, it's really difficult. And kids are really mean to each other sometimes, and they say things that they don't know how much they hurt. So I'd encourage you to just say, hey, it's normal. I have dealt with highs and lows. We could probably go watch every one of my college basketball games, and I could tell you which ones my blood sugar was high and which ones my blood sugar was in range, because the ones where I was in range, I played a whole lot better. So diabetes is a challenge for sure. And, I think I would just make sure that you test or wear the CGM all at the same times. I actually play basketball with my pump connected now. I have these tights and leggings that have pockets in them that I can keep it close to me. So I'm able to run and play basketball. And that has helped a lot too. But the main thing is I for sure get a CGM if you can, and do your best to adjust the routine and keep it as consistent as possible. I think you're still on mute, Tammy.
Thank you. Do you recommend kids with diabetes have a social media presence as well?
Yeah, so I think it's, I'm not a parent, but I understand the need to want to make sure that your children are protected and their privacy is very, very important. So I think it's really important for kids with diabetes to just be connected to other kids. So if there's a camp or a local community or a JDRF chapter, I think kids on social media, it really depends on how comfortable you are. You can also make their profiles private so that only the people that you approve can see their stuff, which I think I would recommend if I was trying to make that decision for my own son or daughter. That's what I would do. But yes, I think it's important for young people especially, to see people like me and like Jillian and like the hangry woman like Mila and like Grace and Salt, like Kiri and like Sahil, because you never know what you'll learn. And I think it's important, like that picture I showed you of me drinking the juice box. Somebody came up to me after that session, and it was a mom and her daughter, and said, it meant so much to me to see a grown man chug a juice box on stage. And because that's a real thing that I do. Yeah. And it seems really normal. So I think, manage it, and make sure that you have an open conversation with your son or daughter about it. But it's important to have that exposure to people who are living with diabetes.
And I love this question. How tall are you, and do you own any fish?
I am 6'6", so 200 centimeters, right on the money. And I don't own any fish, but I do have some salmon burgers in the freezer. That's the closest fish I have. I've never owned a fish really. I guess I had a betta when I was in high school, but that was pretty easy, pretty simple.
If you could have coffee or lunch with any T1D, who would it be and why?
Ooh, coffee or lunch with any T1D. Who would it be or why? There's a lot of really cool people with diabetes, and I've gotten to meet almost all the ones that I want. I think Robin Arzon, I'm doing Peloton right now, so I'd love to get coffee with her and go for a run or something. But, I have had coffee and lunch with almost all of the people who were on the panel. And I have to say that they're some of my favorite people with diabetes. So that group would be a great one to get coffee and lunch with.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a pretty lively lunch.
Definitely.
So Christine is asking, where's your diabetic hoodie? She bought one last year and it's her favorite. My boyfriend loves when I wear it. Wearing it in a way has made it easier to talk about. Thank you, Rob. My 6-year-old just jumped on my lap to listen to you.
Oh man, well that's so awesome. And thank you. Yeah, so I have my diabetic hoodie is still available. If you go click the link in my Instagram bio. This is the first keynote that I've given where I wasn't wearing it. And I feel a little bit weird about it, but I also was like, you know what? I can talk about it. I'll answer the questions. I love the diabetic hoodie. I've been thinking about making diabetic masks. I just want to make sure to be cautious and try not to be too, try not to capitalize on a bad situation. But also, wearing that, sometimes when I go and fly to these events, I have that big diabetic, like all in block letters across my chest. And I forget that I'm wearing it. I'm walking through the airport and people are looking at me funny because like TSA agents are like, they look at me and they're like, oh, what? So I find that it's a great conversation starter. And I guess I'll tell a quick little story because I know we're probably short on time.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
I was wearing that hoodie. I actually came home from speaking in San Antonio a few years ago, and I was having coffee with my other type 1 friend, Scriven. And we sat down and we were in this hotel in Dallas, and I was kind of tired and a little bit dragging. So I just wore sweats and I wore my hoodie. And I sat down and somebody came up to me in the coffee shop and said, hi, like, I'd like to ask you about your hoodie. My daughter has type 1 diabetes, so, I'm just curious about it. And I told them about Diabetics Doing Things, about the podcast. And they said, oh, that's very cool. Thanks. Nice to meet you. And they went over and they ordered their coffee. And then they came back and her dad, the man said, oh, I talked to my daughter. Apparently she listens to your podcast and follows you on Instagram. So she said to tell you hello. And then I actually got to meet her in Chicago later that year. So just because I was wearing that hoodie, if I wasn't wearing that hoodie, that conversation never would have happened. So it's cool. I love the hoodie. I'm figuring out what to do next. I have a cool idea for some new t-shirts, but million different projects. Who has the time?
Yeah, exactly. What are some standout podcasts that you've hosted with your diabetic guests?
I really love, there's a live podcast that I did with Paloma Guerrero, who's Glitter Glucose. I did that a couple weeks ago. I also interviewed Tracy Brown, who's the CEO of the American Diabetes Association. That was really, really, really cool. And I also interviewed the last guy with type 1 to play in the NBA, Gary Forbes, right before Christmas. So really any of the last 10 or 15 episodes that are on the podcast are really, really good. And the best way to learn about those is on Instagram or diabeticsdoingthings.com.
What is your favorite thing to eat?
Oh man. I love pizza. I love pizza. I don't eat it super often, or when I do, I eat like cauliflower crust. But man, what like a good slice of Pizza Hut pizza. Some people might say like Domino's or Papa John's, but I like Pizza Hut pizza and like a cold glass of Diet Coke or Coke Zero and watching a basketball game. I look forward to the next time I can do that.
Well, the next time you come to Detroit, we'll show you pizzas that are really the best pizzas, Detroit pizzas. So.
Okay, well, I've been to a cool place in Detroit. I can't remember. It looked like a garage, like a car garage, and it was a pizza place. It was really good. I can't remember the name though off the top of my head. So
yeah, and Vincetta probably.
Okay.
Of all the interesting people you have interviewed, do you remember who had T1D the longest and how long they had it?
Yeah, I actually got to meet a guy I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head, but he works for Medtronic, and he actually tested one of the first insulin pumps when the insulin pumps were like the size of a backpack. And he had type 1 for almost 70 years when I interviewed him. And he was an amazing, amazing guy. He lived exactly normal life that he wanted to live. And it was super, super cool just to meet him. And his episode, I think is probably like around episode 60 or 70. And I love meeting people who've lived with diabetes for a long time, because as you guys who have had diabetes for a long time know, 30 years ago, there was no CGM, there was no insulin pump, there was no looping, there was none of this. It was boiling needles and syringes and cow insulin or regular insulin and analogs, and you had to wait for an entire, you had to wait for, you know, a whole minute or 2 minutes to get your blood sugar reading. And I see people who had to go through that, and they're living these amazing lives, and they're doing exactly what they want, and they have grandkids, and they've had great careers. And that gives me a ton of hope, because, you know, we have a lot of advantages now. I believe this is the best time to live with type 1 if you have to have it. And so it makes me hopeful for when I've had it for 70 years and what my life will look like.
Yeah. Why does your diabetic hoodie have quotation marks?
So I fully ripped off Virgil Abloh's Off-White hoodie. So he does things like on boots, he'll put like "for walking" and he'll have it in quotation marks. I really liked diabetic in quotation marks because the word diabetic, a lot of people struggle with, and it feels like a label and it feels negative. I never really felt that way, but I understand people that do. And so now I've even taken greater care to say people with diabetes or life with diabetes rather than diabetic, because I think it can be really, it can be harsh for some people. But I think it's funny to think that one single label could ever encompass a person. So whether it's diabetic or ADHD or overachiever or Mr. Popular or Miss Popular, whatever, one word doesn't encompass a human. And I believe that with diabetes. So I think there's a little bit of, yeah, I'm a diabetic, but there's so much more to me that meets the eye. It's so much more than that label. So that's why I like the quotes.
Yeah, yeah. And our last one is, what's your favorite blood sugar and why?
Great. Well, I thank you for asking this question. My favorite blood sugar is a 69 blood sugar, and I'll tell you why. Because I think it's funny and I'm an immature goofball. But I also like it because typically, especially if you wear a Dexcom, when your blood sugar gets below 70, usually you get an alarm, and that's often the first alarm that you get. So what's the first number below 70? 69. So it happens a lot. So people are often seeing their low blood sugars at 69, which I think is funny. So if you see one of those, take a picture of it, tag me in it on Instagram, I'll share it because I think it's funny. But there's two rules. You got to treat first. So you screenshot, treat first, and then tag. So you treat it, make sure you're okay, then tag me. And I'll have a laugh about it with you. And the reason I like to laugh about it is because hypoglycemia is scary. And I think we've all probably had a low or two that made us feel like, oh, that didn't feel good. You had to recover afterwards or whatever the case is. And, you know, for me to have a little bit of a laugh and know that it's going to be okay is one of my favorite things. So thanks for that question. Tag me in your 69 blood sugars. I'll at least say nice and share it. That's a promise. I think I've shared over 2,500 of these by now.
That is got to be the best answer I have had all week.
I'm so glad.
Love it. I just love it. Thank you so much for being here and sharing with us. This was engaging, entertaining, but also informative and inspiring. Thank you so much, Rob, for joining us. I'm sorry it couldn't be in person, but I'm glad we were able to do it.
Me too. And you know what, guys, like I want to applaud, you know, everybody's here. There's 80 of you guys here. I want to give you guys a round of applause, for coming to this, but I really want you guys to really make sure that you tell Tammy and you tell Denise and you tell all of the other staff members what a great job they did with this. This is the first one of these out of any chapter. You guys were the first one to organize a virtual summit. And in a short amount of time, you guys put this together. It worked great. And it was my pleasure to be here. And I look forward to the next time I can see you all in person, hopefully next year. Denise even asked the question, when am I going to be at the next JDRF summit? Hopefully soon. Stay home, wash your hands, take care of yourselves. You know, I want all of us to really stay safe. There was also a member of the type 2 diabetes community who passed away from Detroit. So please be careful. This is a serious thing. And I, above all, want you all to be safe, and I look forward to the next time that I can see you guys in person. So give me a follow. I'm Rob Howe. I'm very easy to find. Diabetics Doing Things is here to stay. We're going to continue to evolve. And my show, Rob Howe Has a Live Show, is going to be, we're going to have your favorite people from the diabetes community, and even some of my friends who don't have diabetes but do amazing, cool, fun things are going to be part of that. So Sunday at 7 p.m. Looking forward to seeing you guys there.
That's wonderful. And we have put your link in the chat box. Thanks so much. And I'm going to say thanks to a few other people too before we go. And somebody did ask if we were going to be talking about COVID-19 here. And I do want to say the best place to find out about coronavirus in terms of the diabetes world is on our JDRF website. And April has put the link to it there. They have been updating that daily with the latest information. It is a great resource. And I do want to say, you've heard her name a lot tonight, and I do want to say thank you to Denise Pentescu. She has been planning this for years, this summit, and she had planned it for a live event this year, and we suddenly had to pivot, and she pivoted with me and helped get the speakers, and we pulled it together in a very short amount of time, and we couldn't have done it without you, Denise. And I do want to say thank you to our sponsors. You know, we made it through 4 nights, and we made it through this summit, and we can't do anything without our sponsors. Our national premier sponsor, Lilly, our national supporting sponsors, Medtronic, Dexcom, and Novo Nordisk, our national vendor sponsors, Xeris and Insulet, our educational grants from Cole Family Foundation and our Fanny Craft Foundation, our local gold sponsor, Beaumont Children's, and our local silver sponsors, Healthy Living Medical Supply and Tandem Diabetes, and of course, Ford Motor Company. And thank you to all of you for sticking with me this week. Those of you that were in here on Monday, it was pretty rough getting through that first night and learning all this, but we made it to tonight, and gosh, it was great. So thank you all. Thank you, Rob, for being our last speaker.
Thank you, guys.
Stay healthy, everyone. Please stay healthy. Thanks.